Before we get today's show started, I just want to remind everyone that we have boots on the ground at the NFL Combine all week, so don't miss anything. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We got free videos all year long, all off season for the draft, free agency, and more. So interactive, informative content. We want to hear from you. I've said it before. This is not Read Sports. This is not anything like that. It's Chat Sports. It's all about you guys. So make sure to hit that sub button. And without further ado, let's get on today's show. What's going on, Bucs fans? You're watching Bucs Breakdown by Chat Sports. My name is Reid Bartkus. Wherever you're watching, whenever you're watching, hope you're having a great day. On today's show, we're going to be talking about top 3 Atlanta Falcons that could follow Zac Robinson to the Tampa Bay area. Now, before I show you those 3 people, I do have to let you guys know the breaking news that the Falcons are planning to franchise tag standout tight end Kyle Pitts. He probably would have been number 1 on this list. And full transparency, I was scripting this show, and then the news came up, and I was like, well, so I had to change some stuff around, but I still did want to let you guys know about the news because if you didn't see, they're franchise tagging him, and means he's going to be off the board. Now, it says expected. They're working on a long-term deal, so I was expecting this to happen. When I talked about him on the show, I was really hoping that they wouldn't franchise tag him, and then we can kind of sign him from there. There was going to be a lot of teams that were going to be interested in him because he did prove himself in 2025. He finally had a more of a breakout year. We know that firsthand. But I was expecting this to happen, and honestly, people can say, hey, well, maybe a tag and trade. I'm okay. The report came out that they're going to try and work on a long-term deal. It was honestly not a pipe dream, but it was more of like a, hey, if they don't franchise tag him, that's when we can jump in and potentially have him follow Zac Robinson, but not today. So I go back to my thoughts on maybe Cade Otton. Is that because when Kyle Pitts gets franchise tagged, now our heads go to, all right, what do we do at the tight end position? Because Cade Otton is still a free agent, and he could go sign somewhere else as well. Do we want to re-sign him? I know a lot of you guys in the comments have said, hey, I like Cade Otton. He's a good option. I think we should keep him. His Spotrac market value is at a $7.9 million. So not crazy expensive. And we know Cade Otton. We've seen him over the years. A solid red zone blocking tight end, a good target, has had some maybe drop problems or, problems in the past, but he's a solid tight end that I wouldn't mind re-signing, especially when you look at this Bucs depth chart when you've got Cade Otton, Payne Durham, who not huge, and then Devin Culp, not as well. So you got basically 2 backups if Cade Otton doesn't come back. Do you want to maybe try your hand in the draft with taking Kenyon Sadiq in the first round, or maybe hoping in the second round a different tight end becomes available? But now that's what we got to think about. Are we going to keep Cade Otton? Is that a real opportunity or a real decision that we're going to have to make because Kyle Pitts is definitely not an option now? I think so. So you let me know. Should the Bucs re-sign Cade Otton? Before I show the 3 Falcons that are going to follow Zac Robinson potentially, maybe type your Y's for yes, type your N for no. Let me know. Do you think the Bucs are going to sign Cade Otton? I'll give my quick thoughts. I think yes. I think he's a solid tight end. I think we have other needs that we have to focus on. I think you got a good target. Maybe continue to develop your younger guys in that tight end room. I think from then on, I think you re-sign Cade Otton. But we'll see what happens in free agency. It's getting closer. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We'll get you covered all offseason long. All right, now to the meat and bones of today's show. Falcons to follow Zac Robinson potentially to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tyler Allgeier, we've talked about him before. He is a free agent coming from the Atlanta Falcons. So could he possibly follow Zac Robinson? And I don't want to, stay too much on him because I've talked about him before. But this is a real option because he thrived as a backup to Bijan Robinson. And if you're saying, well, he doesn't want to be a backup, I think a lot of other teams would probably see him as a backup. But his Spotrac market value is at a $1.8 million. And, Javonte Williams is definitely a RB1, and he got a lot more than that. So I think he's an RB2. And with Rashad White leaving, there is a little bit of a hole here, and I'll talk about Sean Tucker in a second. But I mean, Bucky Irving, I don't want to say he has injury problems, but we've seen him get injured, and you want to have a good running back depth chart. Like, I mean, look at the Falcons. Bijan Robinson is top 3 running back in the league, or even Jahmyr Gibbs. You got a good 1-2 punch in those backfields. It's not never just one guy. So I think you also have to think about Sean Tucker. Do you want to bring back Sean Tucker? Because we've seen some flares of Sean Tucker being very useful and good production. I mean, if you think about back to the Bucs game, or the Bills game in Week 11. I mean, it was a breakout game for him. He had 19 carries, 106 yards, 2 receptions for 34 yards, and 3 total touchdowns, averaging about 5.5 yards per carry. So we've seen what he can do, and I think if you want to maybe re-sign him to a 1-year, maybe 2-year deal or something like that, but also sign Tyler Allgeier and sort of create a 3-headed monster, maybe not a running back by committee, but more of a, hey, Sean Tucker continues to maybe be that wrecking ball a little bit, that red zone option if you want to use him down there, and use Bucky Irving like you had before. Bucky Irving's a great receiving back as well. You sort of develop Bucky into a not a bell cow back, but like just some help for Bucky. And you put Tyler Allgeier in there, on third downs or something like that, and use all 3 of them in a different way. I think that could be pretty useful, but I think it all comes down to Zac Robinson and what he wants for his offense. So we'll have to see, but I think you could potentially sign both because they are not super expensive in terms of, I mean, we have about $14 million in cap space. You can move that around if you wanted to, and that's still a lot for, maybe if you want to sign 2 running backs because I don't know. Maybe we don't want to sign 2 running backs because we have other needs elsewhere. But I think you can sign both. You let me know down in the comment section. I love to hear you guys' opinions. But moving on to the second guy, Elijah Wilkinson, a guard from the Atlanta Falcons. Now, he did start a good amount of games, actually, last year. And he was serviceable. It was a good one. A good guard in terms of, good, average, But his Spotrac market value is also out of 1.8. And I was talking to our Falcons host, and he said he was, good, but the penalties. And he had 12 of them last year. Not great. So that's why I say he's an average guy. But at the same time, if you think about our depth chart and our offensive line depth, we need a lot of offensive line depth. But in 2025, you had 62 overall PFF grade, 61 pass block, and 68 run block. But also that 12 penalties worries me a little bit. It does. Not because maybe he just continues to make mistakes, but I think with the new OC coming in, you want to be as perfect as possible. I know there's going to be some mistakes, but you don't want penalties to be something that you're looking back on being like, that's why we lost the game. You want it to be, hey, it was a tough fought battle and we did everything we could on the field to try and win that game. You don't want the penalties to be the main factor. And I don't want to say it was all his fault, but I mean, we do need offensive line depth. I mean, we know the injuries that we had last year to Ben Bredesen and Cody. I just think having depth in the O-line and in the trenches is something that puts yourself at ease a little bit, knowing that, hey, we've got some serviceable guys that can go in and produce for someone who may get injured. And I don't want to I don't want to like put that out into the world saying like, hey, injuries are going to happen, but they do happen. It's the NFL. It's a violent game. So we've seen it last year. So I think Elijah Wilkinson, if he wanted to follow, I would be okay with that because I've seen some people talking about going O-line in the draft, and we could find a cheap serviceable guard in free agency if we wanted to go with Wilkinson. So that's my opinion on that one. But before we continue, I just want to remind you guys again, if you want Bucs content all season long, all off season, make sure you hit the subscribe button. I'm doing this for you guys. I'm having a great time. Still brand new in the hosting and covering the Bucs. So I've been a fan for a while, but I'm still getting used to talking in front of the camera. But I'm doing everything I can to give you the best content possible. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. It is $0, 100% free to hit that subscribe button. All right, moving on to the third guy. I don't know if anyone could have guessed this. If someone was thinking about, all right, who could the third guy be? Darnell Mooney. Now, he is not a free agent, but I was talking to our Falcons host, and he was talking about, potentially cutting him. I think they want to go see what they can get in a trade. So I was like, hey, why not? If you think about it, if Mike Evans does not return, hopefully he does. I think so. Hopefully he does. Then, hey, maybe we go for a guy like Darnell Mooney. Now, like I said, he is not a free agent, so we would have to trade for him. But Darnell Mooney is I think on the Bears, he had one of his better seasons. We'll look at that. But if you think about it, the first thing that I think about is injuries. Now, he has dealt with a lot of injuries, and we'll look at that in a second. But he had a down year last year. It's true, and he missed some time with injuries as well. But he was very slow getting up, and I don't think him and Michael Penix meshed very well. He only had almost 400 and a half yards. Why am I saying it like that? 443 yards. Come on, Reid. Let's get better. 90, almost 1,000 yards last year when it was just Kirk Cousins, and I think there was a major uptick in production when it was Kirk Cousins as the Atlanta Falcons quarterback rather than Michael Penix, because we saw that with Kyle Pitts. He did very well when it was him and Kirk Cousins. So that could be the same thing with Darnell Mooney. And I'll say it again, Baker Mayfield is better than both Atlanta Falcons quarterbacks, and I don't think it's close. But let's go back to Darnell Mooney's best season. Back with the Bears, 140 targets, 81 receptions, over 1,000 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Now, I like Darnell Mooney. I think he's a good wide receiver. I think he had a good year in 2024 with Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons. But the thing that worries me is the injuries. These aren't even all of them. But if you look, it's his knee, his hamstring again, and he was out in 2025. Shoulder, concussion, groin. It worries me a little bit, and he's a little bit older wide receiver. Now, I'm torn because you don't really have to give up a ton for him. I was talking to our Falcons host once again, and I said, what would you have to give up for a Darnell Mooney? I go, 6th round pick, and he's like, yeah. So they want to get rid of him, I think. That's what our Falcons host Moose was talking about. But I would give up a 6th round pick for Darnell Mooney if Mike Evans leaves. Now, if Mike Evans stays, I don't want an older injury-ridden wide receiver. I think he can do well, but we need people on the field. Like Chris Godwin has some injuries, Mike Evans has some injuries. We need some help for Baker Mayfield and Emeka Egbuka going into a second year. So I would do 6th round pick, give up our 6th round pick for him if Mike Evans leaves. But you let me know. Would you make this trade? Type T for trade, type P for pass down in the comment section. Please let me know. I look at all the comments because I like to see what you guys say. And if you have the same opinion as me, where if Mike Evans leaves and you go trade for a guy like Darnell Mooney, then yeah. But if not, I would type my P for pass if Mike Evans is staying. Speaking of commenters, I just want to give a little fun shout out to James Tolson for commenting. He comments on almost every video, and he has some good insight. He always throws his opinion out there, and I always respect it because I've said it and I'll say it again. This is all for you guys. This is not for me. This is all content for you guys to be able to watch a fun YouTube video about your favorite team. So shout out to James Tolson. I'll do this once in a while. If you guys comment, on the show, or you give your opinion, I'll always shout you out on the show. So make sure you hit the subscribe button while you're down there. Hit the like button as well. And as always, fire the cannons.